finally, what's interesting is that God finally lays down his judgment. And there's an interesting little tidbit in the way that God judges that is very fascinating and can help us understand what exactly the judgment of God is. And we often think of the judgment of God as this arbitrary thing that comes down from heaven, throwing lightning bolts. Just God is angry, so he sends down his anger. And there's a way in which we need to understand that that's real, that the anger of God is a real thing, that if the world goes against what it's supposed to be, if it starts to move in directions that are counter its nature, then the anger of God comes down upon us. But that anger of God is the very result of us going away from what God wants. It's in the very pattern of moving away. And so you could think of it, like someone who starts to take heroin. They take heroin, and then at some point you could say, the judgment of God is on that person. But it's actually also just the consequences of them taking heroin. That is, the truth of that pattern of taking heroin is that it's not sustainable. If you do it constantly, then at some point it starts to break apart, and you start to self-destroy, and that appears as the judgment of God.